What we also see now is an increasing realization that there is that developing countries have not done what they promised in terms of especially in terms of adaptation. You know, there is the cutting ribbon stuff of mitigation, but in terms of adaptation, they haven't done it. And especially when it comes to LDCs and SEED, the amount of money that goes to adaptation is small compared to mitigation. And the amount of money that goes to SIDS and LDCs is small compared to what goes to the middle income countries.
What we are witnessing is really a major structural change in aid funding right now. Okay, and so the USAID cut is and was very dramatic. But if you look at the structural change, it is not so different from what happened in other traditional donors, such as many of the European countries. So major things have changed. First of all, public investments in the EU and the US has really either stabilized or gone down significantly. This has significantly been replaced by private money. Okay, so we've seen a really uptake about investment from the private sector in ag and food R&D. And at the same time, you've seen a major uptake of ag and food R&D in countries like India, Brazil, China, very big. So China is now the biggest public investor in R&D in that area. And so I think that's a model, if you want, that we are using now, a mental model, how things may evolve.
Innovation is a crucial part of adaptation, the higher yielding seeds, for example. Well, in developing countries, the financial buffer that small-scale farmers have to invest into adaptation, and investing means foregoing consumption now so that I can, so I've higher income later, but foregoing consumption now, that is an impossibility for many households or small-scale farmers, because it means it cuts directly into your food security. Am I able to feed my children? And the risk of failure is immense. Saying risk of failure doesn't mean loss of financial resources, it means loss of life, it means loss of health.
Something about public and private funds. In terms of public funding, we're spending in the world $800 billion per year on agricultural subsidies. Okay, the vast majority of this money is not giving the right incentives, is not stimulating neither mitigation or adaptation. That has to change. In terms of the private sector, okay, the biggest source of private funding, okay, is actually through the value chain. It's consumer spending on food. That's the biggest source. Okay. So that comes down, and so we have to mobilize that to basically stimulate, to give the incentives to help finance people along the value chain.
So the global stuff, let me tell you, the global stuff from Santiago to Dhaka is very, very different. So what you use in Ecuador and what you use in Bangladesh is going to be different instruments, because some of them will be able to internalize and de-risk, and others need public finance. But the most important thing is to actually recognize that there is a need for adaptation. It doesn't have to be said behind closed doors, doesn't have to be said under the table. There is a need for adaptation, and adaptation is local, and adaptation is something that needs to take place. I think that needs to be internalized a lot more.